What a morning. Lips are a little dry. Now, all right. Two Persevere. We powered through. Primetime viewers, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. It's the Primetime Pregame show on Week 15, December 14th, 2025. We have a monumental slate of games coming into Week 15. We've only got 4 more weeks in the NFL regular season before the playoffs begin, and it is going to be jam-packed with another weekend, another Sunday full of football, and we've got, oh my goodness, some excellent matchups this weekend. My God. I'm just looking at it now, and it gets me all giddy. 1 o'clock window. The Chiefs and the Chargers. Chiefs are fighting for their playoff lives. The Patriots have a chance to clinch the AFC East against the Buffalo Bills in Mike Vrabel's first year. Not to mention the Panthers can take the unchallenged lead in the NFC South if they can get a win in New Orleans today. The Lions and Rams, of course, that trade for Matt Stafford for Jared Goff and picks has been quite one of the biggest win-win trades, and we get to see yet another installment of that. I believe it's the 3rd time that they have faced off. That'll be a good one. And then Seahawks and Colts. Phillip Rivers coming out of retirement at 44 years old will be battling a very good defense. Mike McDonald's defense has been very impressive throughout the course of the season. And then the Denver Broncos and the Green Bay Packers, potentially one of the games of the week coming in. So we have a massive slate. We have a big-time lineup. I am excited. If you're playing your fantasy football playoffs, then there's probably a lot riding on this week as the playoffs begin. So good luck to those in your playoff matchups. But all that does not matter until the games kick off and begin. So those games are going to kick off in roughly an hour and a half, more likely an hour and 28 minutes. But before we get into all of that, I got to talk about what on earth happened on Thursday Night Football. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 2-6 in the last 8 games they have played. Todd Bowles is here. I know Tampa Bay Bucs fans are now calling for his firing after what was a great start to the season has completely gone off the rails and given the Carolina Panthers, of all teams, first place in the NFC South. You can see it right there. The Carolina Panthers are now in first place, tied for first if they lose. But they're right there at 7-6. They have an opportunity to be 8-6 if they can just go into New Orleans and take down Tyler Shuck and the Saints. And that win is huge based on, you're looking at if a loss knocks them down to 24% chance. I think Carolina's got to take full advantage of this opportunity, especially considering that they have 2 games against the Bucs, and not to mention they got to play the 5-seeded Seahawks, who will have an opportunity next week when they play the Rams to take the lead for the NFC West, but the 1 seed, depending on how things shake out today. And what a list. I mean, look at some of these teams. Like, we've got a lot of these teams. A lot of these teams are expected already to be in playoff position. Like the Jaguars, if they win today against the New York Jets, I mean, actually, their win percentage basically stays the same, but there's a 98% chance that we're seeing Jacksonville in the playoffs. Like, especially a lot of the AFC feels pretty much set with the Denver Broncos. They feel with a win today, they would clinch playoff berth. New England Patriots, if they win today, they would not only clinch a playoff berth, but clinch the AFC East in Mike Vrabel's first season. The Rams could also clinch a playoff berth with a win today. So a lot riding on the line for a lot of teams, and one of the most exciting, I think, especially for Chiefs haters enthusiasts. The Chiefs can miss the playoffs with 3 weeks to go in the regular season. A couple things need to happen. They would need to lose today to the Los Angeles Chargers, and then the Buffalo Bills would need to defeat the New England Patriots, and the Bills would need to beat the Patriots, and the Jaguars would need to beat the Jets. So that would put and I want to say, I think Houston would also need to beat Arizona. They would need to officially defeat the Arizona Cardinals, I want to say. Let me double check, because I think that's what we're looking at. But it is possible for the Chiefs to miss the playoffs if a certain set of things does happen. So if they were to be eliminated, yep, they need to lose to the Chargers. The Bills need to beat or tie the Patriots. But I mean, guys, get ties out here, and then Texans beat Cardinals. Which, I mean, two of those are very. This could all happen. And if the Chiefs need to win out, of course, obviously to have any realistic chance, but Chiefs lose to the Chargers, which is very possible given their recent struggles. The Bills, they need to beat or tie the New England Patriots. Then if the Jags and Texans beat their opponents, the Jaguars playing the Jets and the Texans playing the Cardinals, then the Kansas City Chiefs would not only be eliminated from the playoffs, from playoff contention, they would be eliminated from playoff contention with 3 weeks remaining in the regular season, which is absolutely wild to think about. Especially going into the year, I don't think a lot of people would have expected that Kansas City would be done and dusted before we're halfway through December, which is incredibly impressive. Looking at the rest of that AFC playoff picture, some of the teams that are still vying to get in, see Indianapolis, who just brought in Phillip Rivers, still outside the playoff bubble as the 8th seed. Can he right the ship as of right now? If they can get a win against Seattle, their playoff chance improves drastically to 51%. So I think this is a big game for the Colts if they can find a way to win it. The Baltimore Ravens, of course, a loss would absolutely be a crushing blow if they were to go down against the Cincinnati Bengals, dropping from a potential 43% if they win to 14%. Of course, the Chiefs, if they lose today, less than a 1% chance to make the playoffs if they beat the Chargers. And even with a win, it would be a uphill climb, but it is absolutely do or die for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, right now, and then for the Detroit Lions, with a win, I mean, Detroit Lions also have a big game going up against the LA Rams. For them, that's also a huge game. If they can get a win there, we are looking at a 76% versus a 45% chance. A big game for Detroit to find a way to down one of the best teams in football in the Los Angeles currently. I do believe if they do win, it will be a guaranteed playoff trip for the Rams. The division would not be clinched, of course, with Seattle and so right there, but it would certainly be a possibility. I mean, a lot of this. I mean, the AFC almost feels locked and loaded, depending on what happens today. But my goodness, what a slate of games we are about to have. But I need to get back. I need to rewind to the biggest headline, of course. That is, of course, what happened on Thursday Night Football. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they finally looked like they were going to get healthy. Mike Evans was a big part of this game. The Bucs were up 2 scores. They were up 2 possessions. They collapsed late, not only giving up a 3rd and 28 followed by a 4th and 14, and Kirk Cousins converts and drives the Falcons down to a game-winning field goal by Zane Gonzalez that squeaks right in past the left side. And there are callings for Todd Bowles' firing, especially considering the stranglehold they had on this division to start the year and the absolute collapse it has been as of late. I mean, the truth is, what is happening in Tampa right now? The level at which they were playing, and they were playing a lot of close clutch ball, but now it just has not been the case. They have not been able to close out, and I think this is part of the loss of their coordinators. I mean, listen, they had two of their former offensive coordinators are now head coaches, and Dave Canales for the Carolina Panthers, and then, of course, Liam Cohen for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Those 2 Cat teams are leading their division. We see Jacksonville there with a 9-4 record in the first place in the AFC South, and then Carolina now has the lead in the NFC South due to Tampa Bay's loss. And I mean, listen, you want to talk about who's been more impressive as of late? Yes, the Carolina Panthers have been inconsistent, but the Bucs have just been on a 6 out of 8 losing streak. Like, they've lost 6 of their last 8 games. They have not looked particularly impressive, and they haven't been particularly healthy. I think, listen, I still have faith, surprisingly enough, in Tampa. I still have faith that Baker Mayfield can turn it around, but I mean, Todd Bowles has to figure out what's going on the defensive side of the ball. And when we look into the Buccaneers' schedule down the stretch, I mean, again, they're going to have to face off against Carolina twice. The better news for Tampa at the very least, is that I think they have an easier other opponent, the form of the Miami Dolphins, as opposed to Carolina, who would have to face off against Seattle. But it doesn't. I'll tell you right now, it does not look particularly good for the Bucs the way they sit. And I don't want to write off Miami either, because they've been winning quite a few games. It's just, you're in this position now. You had your chance, and again, the last 2 weeks were winnable games. The Saints, that honestly should have been a win. There have been so many games where Tampa probably should have won these games. They had stepped up. They had played a little better. They played better defense. They had more. All these games, they just feel, I get it, they're good teams, but they should be at least winning some of them if they are also a good team, and they're just not. And now next week, having to go on the road to a Carolina Panthers team that will be brewing with confidence going in. It's worrisome. It's worrisome for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I had already sold my Panthers stock earlier in the year. Maybe I'm having a little seller's remorse, so to speak. But I mean, I still need to see them clinch it out. We'll see which one of these teams gets in, but not good for the start that the Bucs had when they looked like one of the best teams in the league. Now all of a sudden they have completely fallen off the bandwagon and are just not playing at a high enough level. And Mike Evans was voicing his frustrations right after the game, saying, "How do you give up a 3rd and 28?" You could hear him going off in the locker room. That's not good. When one of your veteran guys who's played incredibly well sees that, just not good for Tampa Bay. Their defense needs to play much better if they want to have any chance. He was impressive. I think he was very impressive in. Baker and the Bucs offense looked good at times, but they need to figure that out. I mean, and also the biggest headline of that game, the Kyle Pitts legacy game. The 43 points that he decides to drop, of course, when he's playing against me in literally almost all my leagues. I think there's one I wasn't playing against him, but I definitely didn't have him. And I mean, wow, just completely out of nowhere, 10 catches, over 150 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Not a single player has done that all year. Kyle Pitts is the first to do so, to get 10 catches, 150 yards, and 3 touchdowns all in the same game. I mean, it might finally happen. Breakout season in year 5 for Kyle Pitts, or breakout game, rather. But unbelievable. Unbelievable stuff. Now, for that division, for the way that I see it shaking out, again, I still feel, based on the inconsistencies of what I've seen from Bryce Young throughout this season, as well as just in general early starts to his career, I have more faith in Dave Canales as the coach than I do in necessarily Bryce Young quarterback play. I think it's going to matter which version of Bryce we get in those Bucs games. Because if we don't get the good version of Bryce, then they're not winning the division. They need to play well in those games, and that's what this division came down to. This division was going to come down to that last stretch where the Panthers and the Bucs face off 2 out of 3 times. That's what this division is going to come down to. It may come down to that Week 18 game, so we'll see what ends up happening. But for the time being, I think with Mike Evans back, I think with some of that leadership back, I think they can potentially get things back on track and still potentially finish out 10-7, just based on the teams they have to play. But it comes down to how Todd Bowles is coaching that. Didn't look good Thursday. They're gonna have to bounce back next Sunday to really figure it out. And listen, I know you think, maybe Bryce Young comes out and plays poorly against the Saints and gives you another shot, but it doesn't really matter to me what Bryce and the Panthers do this week so much as it matters what they do against. They beat Tampa, then they win. They win the division. That's where it's going right now. As for the remaining slate of games, what are the biggest headlines from each of them? I'm going to be diving into that and doing a little brief overview as to what the biggest headlines, starting with the Baltimore Ravens and the biggest headline for me is the quarterback. It's these 2 quarterbacks. They're considered 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. One's a multiple-time MVP. The other's been to a Super Bowl in Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, respectively. First, let's start with Lamar. I think Lamar, in what I've seen from him, is a little concerning. He has not, since returning from injury earlier this year, he hasn't produced at the level that we would expect him to. I mean, listen, when we're looking at QBR, I mean, Kansas, I mean, when we go back and even look, let's see, so he came back against Miami, was great, but he struggled against Cincinnati. He was solid against Pittsburgh, but still didn't make all the best decisions, took some bad sacks, threw a really bad pick, and then you got, like, against Cincinnati, 18.5 QBR. New York Jets, 36.1 QBR. Cleveland, 29.8 QBR. Minnesota, 48.6. It's not necessarily a very impressive. In fact, we've only seen, the last time we really saw him dominate a game was against the Miami Dolphins. And I mean, listen, not having certain receiving help, not having the ability to run the ball with Derrick Henry definitely has impacted his ability to play. But I mean, look at this. His completion percentage has been below 60% in the last 5 contests. So clearly something's going on. Maybe it's, and he's not rushing nearly as much. That's been another big thing. He has not ran the ball nearly as much as he has in years past. He's been much more steady in the pocket, more so, trying to perhaps limit injuries. But the last 5 weeks have just not been particularly impressive for Lamar Jackson, even though they would have a winning record in those last 5 games, being 3-2. But they've lost their last 2 matchups. Now they have to play Cincinnati again. If they were to lose a 3rd straight divisional contest, I think that's a big concern, just because if you're Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh has won 3 of their 4 divisional matchups played. If you were to lose another one, if you're Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, the best you could possibly finish is 3-3, and Pittsburgh just need to beat either you one more time or Cleveland, and even a tie at that point would give Pittsburgh the edge with the division. So if Pittsburgh beats Cleveland, if you lose this game to Cincinnati, that's why I think this game matters. People will say, oh, well, they play Pittsburgh at the end of the year. Right, but what matters is that divisional record. If you end up with the same record as Pittsburgh at the end of the year, and it turns out Pittsburgh has the better divisional record than you because they beat Cleveland, who they play again, if they get that 4th divisional win, then all of a sudden you're looking at it, well, oh, Baltimore can't win the division anyway. So this is an important game. Baltimore, I don't think, can allow Cincinnati to sweep them. If they do, then I think it's probably we're going to end up seeing an Aaron Rodgers-led Pittsburgh Steelers team in the playoffs, which could be interesting, but could also be completely painful to watch. So we'll end up seeing where it goes. But right now, at this juncture, at this point in time, this is a must-win game for Baltimore. And secondly, if you're Cincinnati, I think that's a must-win for Cincinnati, despite the fact that they have very little playoff hopes. What I'm seeing right now is, listen, they lose this game, they're probably done and dusted. I think it's going to be very difficult to make it. I mean, they could still technically make the postseason somehow, but the way I see it, if I'm anybody who's anybody, and I'm, say, Cincinnati, I certainly don't want, like, if I'm the Bengals, okay, let's put this in perspective. If I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I've got my quarterback upset. My quarterback is upset. My quarterback has won 8 of the last 9 games he's played. 8 of the last 9 games Joe Burrow has won, and he is not happy playing football. That's not okay. That's not okay for an organization to have a top 5 quarterback who is upset. Because I'll tell you right now, if Joe Burrow decides, I can't keep playing in Cincinnati, this offensive line is terrible, it hasn't been upgraded. The best his offensive line has been 22nd in the league. That's not good. And for a team that has had an offensive head coach the entire time he's been there, it makes me wonder, is Zach Taylor really a good offensive coach? My answer at this point has kind of been no. I don't think he's in the upper echelon of offensive coaches. I don't think he's up there with a Zach Taylor or a Sean McVay or a Kyle Shanahan or even a Kevin O'Connell. I don't even know if he's better than Dave Canales. I mean, I don't think he's better than Canales right now. I think Liam Cohen would arguably be better. I know that it's short simp. I would argue he's on a similar level to Marty Schottenheimer. I think that's a similar level. And Schottenheimer has been exceeding expectations, but I don't think right now, or Brian Schottenheimer. I just don't see it as they're able to. He's not on that incredible offensive head coach level. Yet Cincinnati's held on to him for the last 2 years, despite the fact they missed the playoffs. Now they're probably going to miss it again, looking at 4-9. And I see no reason to hold on to Zach Taylor at this point, considering what you have on the offense side of the boards and that you're not winning. Zach Taylor got you to Super Bowl. That was 4 years ago. He's made the playoffs once since. They need to be better. They just need to be better. I would move on. If I'm Cincinnati and it comes down to who I'm keeping, Joe Burrow or Zach Taylor, I'm keeping Joe Burrow by any means necessary, and I'm moving Zach Taylor, getting someone else who could potentially build a decent offensive line. But I think this is a huge game for both teams. If Cincinnati loses and is eliminated once again, I think it's time to say you gotta consider pulling the plug on Zach Taylor come season. I think it needs to be done. It needs to be done. Next on the docket, Raiders-Eagles, the big headline. The big headline is Philly going to figure this out? And I think this is a must-win game for Philly. I would say if Philadelphia, for the Raiders, they're out of the playoffs, but the Raiders need to figure out what they have. I think they need to figure out a couple things. I think for the Raiders side, they need to figure out what they have offensively, what they have defensively, and do they think they should keep Pete Carroll? Because right now, you could make a very good case that maybe Pete's not the right guy to lead this. I think going old, like we've seen it with Belichick at UNC, we're now kind of seeing it with Pete with the Raiders. It just feels out of place right now, especially with how, frankly, disappointing the Raiders have been. Now, maybe if they had better quarterback play, maybe if Geno wasn't throwing all these picks, maybe there'd be a case. Maybe there'd be a case to argue. But right now, and I get it, Pete's a high-energy guy, but when you're losing, that high energy doesn't really fit. And maybe the Raiders can pull an upset against Philly with the way they've been struggling. But I think the important thing is evaluating what you have. And honestly, Fernando Mendoza needs to be in the mix for this Raiders team. You can't go into next season with a Geno Smith or a Kirk Cousins or some, filler, clearly bridge quarterback. You had an opportunity for Sam Darnold, you missed out on him. You weren't able to get Darnold in the building. So what's the plan? I think the plan right now, you get a young guy. And I think there's a real chance you consider moving off Pete Carroll. Because he's not winning the games right now. I think you could get a good offensive coordinator out there and get someone with a young quarterback and get the right guy building him up. I just don't think Pete is someone who's going to work with Mendoza. Not that I don't think he can work with Mendoza. I just think you'd be better off with a young, talented guy who's going to be able to get the most out of the Heisman winner, Mendoza, as opposed to an older coach who has maybe the game's changed a lot since Pete was coaching the Seahawks and they were great 10 years ago. The game's changed a lot, and we kind of saw the gradual decline of Seattle. We saw it over the course of the back half of the 2010s. It just was not sustainable. So, to me, I think I'd consider moving off Pete Carroll depending on how this. The most important thing, evaluate the guys you have. You have Brock Bowers. You want to find ways to get Ashton Jeanty involved. I would look into potentially like Trey Tucker. Josh Henry Ruggs. That was a major slip. Trey Tucker, because you traded away Jacoby, right? You see what you have in Trey Tucker. See what you have in the receiver. I think you got to go out, got to go get your quarterback, and then go get him some guys to generate offense. That's what I would be doing with the Raiders. Got to keep up with Sean Payton and Joe Nix. You got to keep up with Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. You're going to have to keep up with Mahomes and the Chiefs. Mahomes, as long as he's in Kansas City, the Chiefs will never truly go away. They'll still be a little thorn in the side in some capacity. You have to be able to compete offensively with those guys. Those are the three guys that you have to find ways to generate offense with and not get such behind in games. That's what the Raiders need to figure out. They need to figure out their offensive identity. It starts with hiring an offensive. As for the Eagles, they host, and listen, 3 straight games. They've not looked good. The effect of not having Lane Johnson out there has mattered. Jalen Carter, I believe, is making his return, if I am not mistaken. So that should be another opportunity for them to get a win here. Oh, no, Jalen Carter's still not available. That could matter. It could open up rushing lanes for Ashton Jeanty. Lane Johnson still being out doesn't help their cause offensively. And listen, 3 straight games, the Eagles haven't figured it out. If they don't figure it out in this game, they're not figuring out the rest of the year. This is a 2-win Raiders team. This is not a team that is dominant. This is not a team that is necessarily impressed this year. And if you're Philadelphia and you want to get back on track, because if you lose this game, I don't know who could you beat. If you lose to the Raiders, right? It feels like that's where the proverbial wagon could fall off. Listen, the last 3 teams you've played, losing to Dallas is in the fight for the playoffs. Losing to the Bears were the 1 seed not too long ago, right? And then losing to the Chargers are a good team. Their defense has been underrated. If I'm the Philadelphia Eagles and I can't generate offense in this game against the Vegas Raiders, I'm concerned. If Jalen Hurts performs like he did last Monday night against this team, I think there's massive concern. And I think it just will be it's already looking like shades of 2023. We know that despite the talent this team has the ability to collapse under Sirianni. I'd be concerned. I'd be a little concerned about it. But if they win, they can shake off those whispers for at least another week. But if they don't win tonight, if they don't win today, they're never going to hear the end of it. It's just going to be just how it's going to be. So, sorry, that's where we're at. That's where it's going to be if we're talking about the Eagles. They don't win today. They're out of being taken seriously right now. They just look like a team who's collapsed. We'll see where that goes, but do not look the same right now. I figured it out. We'll see. I think the Eagles should win this game, but I think there's a very real chance the Raiders come in. Maybe Max Crosby dominates, gets turned over 1 or 2 times, and then that's the story. But if the Eagles lose, they're not hearing the end of it. Cardinals-Texans, a little bit of sort of a filler game. I feel like the Texans are much better than Arizona, but this game I think will likely, in all likelihood, be close. Michael Wilson, Arizona Cardinals, last 4 weeks has basically been the wide receiver 1, so I think that's who Houston's going to have to key in on defensively, and they should be able to do it with guys like Kamari Latimer. Also, Trey McBride is another big-time weapon, but just the targets for Michael Wilson have been otherworldly. For Houston, I think this is big. I think Houston's very much in competition. Additionally, they need to keep pace ahead of Indianapolis. So getting an opponent like Arizona looks very enticing for them. I think another thing is just getting their offense involved, figuring out how they're going to put up points. This is sort of interesting because a lot of these teams, yes, they're still fighting for playoffs, but they're trying to figure out how are we going to perform? What are we going to do in the playoffs to beat something? I think for the Texans, it's a simple formula. You got to run the ball with the combination of Woody Marks and Nick Chubb, and every once in a while you got to be able to get some creative play calling to get Nico Collins in one-on-one matchups. Get him on some crossers. He's very effective over the middle of the field. One of the best, kind of a big body, run after the catch type of receiver from what we've seen from him in his years, as well as a big target in the red zone. That's where they need to be going in those situations to generate offense. As for Arizona, listen, season at this point you're trying to evaluate, and I think Arizona's another team where I would make a really strong case that they move off their head coach. And I like Gannon some aspects, but 45 points allowed to the Rams. I know the Rams are a good team, but you're a defensive coach. You got to be a little better in terms of that defensive play calling, in terms of stopping them from scoring. If I'm anybody who's anybody there in Arizona, I'm considering a Jonathan Gannon removal. I think I'm also considering moving off of Kyler Murray. I think those are just things that need to be taken into account in that building. If they're not taken into account, it's malpractice. I think you need to ask yourself, is Kyler Murray worth it to keep at this contract level, especially considering his injury history? And if the organization doesn't trust him to be a part of decisions, they don't trust him to be a part of what kind of receivers he wants or what players they should go after, if they don't want to consider him in at least a little bit in that process, that probably means you've got the wrong quarterback. You don't have the right guy. I'd move off. Because I think the Bills, they'll listen to Josh Allen if he asks for someone. I think the Chiefs will listen to Mahomes. I think even someone, we're looking, we know Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow should be getting some consideration in terms of who they should be getting. Right? I would argue in a couple years that'll probably be Drake May once he gets a new contract. Right? Once he gets a big contract, I think he'd be involved with some of those front office decisions. So That'd be my argument there. But I think for the Arizona Cardinals, it's a question of they gotta move Kyler. I think Houston should go in, and Houston's defense should make life difficult for Jacoby Brissett, who is playing and has been playing better than expected, considering what he's been as a backup in previous years. But Houston's defense has been on another level, especially in the second half of this season. They've been single-handedly the reason Houston is in this playoff push to be. Moving it along to Chargers-Chiefs. Again, I'd stated this before, that this is do or die. I mean, Kansas City, every single week, it feels like it's do or die, and they've been dying. They have been dying. They have been struggling in these games. At home against the Chargers. This is a division rival. If the Chargers sweep you, and again, not much needs to happen. I mean, it is Bills win, which, again, they probably don't want to get swept by New England. But if Bills win, Jags win, and Texans win, Texans and Jags have two very beatable opponents, then we're looking at the Chiefs being eliminated very early. And if I'm Kansas City, number one, of course, I'm going to keep fighting for the playoffs. But I do think it is a question of what's wrong with the Chiefs. Like, they don't have a particularly strong. Their running game is inconsistent. I like Rashee Rice, but Xavier Worthy hasn't been a great compliment in the number two. Xavier Worthy's basically been next to non-existent this year. Travis Kelce's clearly not the same guy. He's put up a better season than I think a lot of us would have expected, but he's clearly not the same guy. And he clearly is not the main part of this offense. He's not a big X factor. I mean, he's had a great career. He'll be a Hall of Famer. But Kansas City needs to figure out what they're going to do next. Where are they going to go? What offensive pieces are they going to get? How are they going to fix some of the issues they've had defensively with Trent McDuffie not being healthy and Chris Jones not being on the level? It's just, for the first time, Kansas City has shown massive cracks. They've shown cracks before, even in the years where they've won Super Bowls. But this year, it feels like it's a team that is missing too much to really be able to make it. And they're still going to be relevant. Some Mahomes retires, the Chiefs will have relevancy as long as he's there and as long as. But at a certain point, you need to. They missed on it probably too. Honestly, they probably missed on too many draft picks. I think when they remember when they drafted Sky Moore, that was supposed to be a big threat to their offense. He's now a 49er. So I think they've missed on a couple too many offensive draft picks. I think they're asking a little too much of Mahomes considering some of the cast of characters that they had. I know that. So, and again, some of these guys can every once in a while have huge games. Like Hollywood Brown had a great week one performance. But I think you're asking too much of your quarterback right now. I think they also did not have the schedule makers weren't really, in hindsight. I mean, there's no way to know, but based on what their schedule was coming here versus what it ended up being, definitely had an impact. If I'm Kansas City, I'm back to the drawing board. I got to find out ways to generate offense. And again, part of it may just be Andy Reid's play calling has not been incredibly creative. He's called some of the same plays over and over this year, and again, it feels like Patrick Mahomes and that offense have to overcompensate for what has been slightly lackluster play calling. Listen, Andy Reid's been fired before. Philadelphia moved off him, and they've won 2 Super Bowls since that fire. Then, listen, sometimes things need to happen to make way for better things. Things need to fall apart to make way for better things. It may have to be at least considered bringing in a different offensive coordinator that can either liven it up, or maybe in a couple years it may be decided that maybe Andy Reid retires. It might be possible. I'm not saying that that's the first step I'm taking, but it needs to be called into question a little bit of the play calling that we're seeing from Andy in these last several games. Because sometimes the Chiefs' offense is just non-existent. That's not something that we have been used to with the Chiefs, with Mahomes, with Andy Reid. They need to spice things up a little bit. As for the Chargers, they're coming off their dominant performance against Jalen Hurts. They made Jalen Hurts look like Jalen Hurts. And again, for a team that's been banged up all year, I still have a lot of concerns. Like that game last night, Herbert with a coming surgery off the left hand, he's using it to stiff arm folks, which I thought was awesome. But that offensive line gave up 7 sacks, and I know Philadelphia's defensive front is nothing to scoff at. But it does bring up concern when you consider the pass rush team you're going to face you're probably going to face in the playoffs at some point. If you're the Chargers, Jacksonville's front has been much underrated. They've been very good at stopping the run. Josh Hines-Allen has been very good rushing the passer. You've got the Broncos, Nick Bonito and company. you're going to have to deal. You may face Houston somehow, depending on if they win the division with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. And New England's defense has been underrated at spots as well. So it's just, and if the Steelers are in, you may have to deal with Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt screaming off. So coming into this moment, finding these playoff opportunities, you need to find out how you're going to deal with the protection. Because if Kansas City comes, you go into Kansas City, you get sacked another 5-6 times. That takes a toll, and it doesn't make it any easier. So I think for the Chargers, I think it is critical that they figure that out. I've been picking against the Chiefs way too much lately, although this does feel like a game that they would find a way to stay alive in. I'm going to go with the Chargers, though. I think the Chargers... I want to say the Chargers will find a way to win, especially with what they did against the Eagles, but I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to see how the Chiefs come out, how they come out swinging. That's what we'll have to find out. If not, then I'm going to roll. I don't know. This is actually a very tough game for me to pick because every single time I want to feel like I can't pick the Chiefs this time, but I'll pick the Chiefs for now, but only because I happen to be wearing red to start the show. We'll just do it because it's based on something random. That usually works better anyway. Somehow, some way, that one random thing is the difference. And then finally, I think even bigger than the previous one, the biggest 1 o'clock game to me, it's Bills going into it. This is probably first of all, I'd say this is the biggest game. This is the biggest game for New England in their last 3-4 years. I would say they have a shot to really, I think, make one of the biggest screw you statements I've ever seen. Not only get their 12th win of the year, but also win the AFC East. And not just win the AFC East, win the AFC East in Mike Vrabel's first year coaching the Patriots. Which, to me, is kind of nuts. Because, listen, if you're Buffalo, you just allowed New England to just win the division? Right? If they lose this game. That's what Buffalo Bills don't want the headline to be. They don't want the headline to be Mike Vrabel wins AFC East in first year with New England. Now, I think the Bills are going to win. I just find it very difficult to find that the Patriots will be able to sweep them. I think Buffalo should come out. Josh Allen might have to play a little hero ball, but I think he's more than willing to do so to go win it. But I think New England's going to be fired up just as much so, which is why I think this is going to be an incredibly close matchup. It's going to be an incredibly close game. I have faith that Josh Allen's somehow going to do something. And I think depending on how Drake May plays determines where the MVP goes. If Drake May wins this game and does a lot in winning this game, if he does a lot, then if he throws for 350 yards and 3 or more touchdowns, then I think there's a very strong chance he sews up the MVP with this win. Because again, when I think of MVP, I really need moments. I need big moments. If this game he loses, then the biggest moment we would have is week 5, and even then, right, there's just not enough there. Whereas I feel like Stafford has had a lot of moments this season where he's stepped up and played big time. The road win against the Colts was an example. I think next week against Thursday Night Football will be a big win for him if he's able to get it against the Seattle Seahawks. We've seen Stafford play well a lot this year, and I don't know. I based on the numbers and what I've been seeing, I feel like it should be Matthew Stafford, but of course there's the Drake May lovers out there. I understand winning a lot of games and finally having a good Patriots quarterback again, but I would argue Stafford just purely based off the numbers. So we'll see what ends up happening. I think the Bills will just sneak out a win here in New England to keep the potential for the division debate alive, but for now, that will be my pick at this point in time. Jaguars-Jets. This one I think is going to be a slaughter. I think with how much Jacksonville has riding on the line and the fact that the Jets are going to be starting Brady Cook instead of Tyrod Taylor or Justin Fields, this is just not... It's not been a great first season for Aaron Glenn specifically. I know they've had a couple nice wins here and there, but it has not been impressive. It's been, Garrett Wilson's been hurt. Breece Hall has been a small bright spot, but with no real quarterback play, either when Justin Fields is playing. When Tyrod Taylor plays, it's a little better. But they're going to be sending out Brady Cook. This is going to be a nightmare, and I think for the Jets, I have to imagine quarterback has to be in discussion for whether it's a free agent, whether it's the draft. I think they're going to go with the draft. I think they should still get a veteran guy, but I think they have to consider drafting a quarterback because that is by far their clearest weakness. 100%. If Mendoza's somehow available, they may have to trade up to get him too. We'll see, but I think it's mission critical that the Jets get a young guy in the locker room because they can't go into next season with Taylor and Justin Fields. It can't happen. Moving along, another game that this isn't even like a blowout game. This game just looks like it's going to be probably bad. Commanders, Giants. It's going to be Jackson Dart going up against Marcus Mariota. This game's interesting because I feel like the Giants can win this game, but then if they win, all of a sudden they don't have the top pick in the draft anymore. The top pick in the draft, I mean, the draft order is so interesting right now just because you got like Jets are in there, Raiders, like your usual suspects, the Raiders, the Browns, the Jets, all those teams at the top. Saints are in there, certainly. Commanders are in there, surprisingly, after having a big 24. It's very interesting, and if the Giants have possession of the 1 seed, so draft-wise, you don't want the Giants winning, but of course, rooting for your favorite team, I'd imagine you want them to win no matter what. That's how I am, at least. How I try to be. I get pissed when this team just throws so hard. But listen, I mean, this is a 50-50 game. No Jaden Daniels. The Commander season has gone completely off the rails. Unfortunately, Zach Ertz gets hurt with an ACL injury. You've had Jaden Daniels out for multiple random stretches. Defense is just not healthy, and at this point, you got to shut Jaden down. You don't want a repeat of the RG3 scenario. You just can't have that happening. Considering the state of the division, too, because this division, I'll say it, the NFC East is always constantly changing. It's constantly in flux of who's going to win. Like, there's no guarantee Philly even wins right now. You would expect, like, okay, they're probably going to win it. But if Dallas finds a way to win out and Philly, like, loses the majority of their games except one, then all of a sudden you're looking at, well, that's not good for what's happening. Many people would already have the division for Philadelphia wrapped up. If they lose and fall to 8-6, and then Dallas wins, moves to 7-6-1, all of a sudden, it's far from over, right? Like, it's all right there for the taking for Dallas potentially. Looking at the playoff picture, I mean, listen, they need to beat Minnesota, and even then they only have a 16% chance. But if you're Philadelphia, by losing today against the Raiders, your odds would go from a 95% chance with a win to a 78. A 78 is still very strong, don't get me wrong, but this is not a game you want to lose, as I had mentioned previously. Must win for the Philadelphia Eagles, in my opinion. But, again, that's where it's at right now. As for for the Commanders, I think it's best if you just shut Jaden down for the rest of the season. Make sure he's healthy next year. You reload offensively. You get younger players. You draft some young receivers that are going to be helpful. Because right now, you probably, unfortunately, you made a mistake paying Terry. I would have made the same mistake. I would have given him a contract, but I think you waited too long. And as a result, coming into the season, wasn't healthy, couldn't stay on the field. Now you're paying a 30-year-old wide receiver probably a bill too much money. It's unfortunate that that's how it has to go. But that is what happened. That's what happened. But we'll see where this game goes. I don't really have a winner one way or the other. I mean, I think no matter who wins, they kind of lose, Even if you win, you lose, and if you lose, you lose. But if the Giants find a way to win, all of a sudden the draft order changes once again. So it's going to be interesting seeing the draft order fluctuate depending on who wins. Browns-Bears, the final 1 o'clock game. 2 young quarterbacks that are very exciting. Of course, everyone is excited after Shadour's big performance against the Titans. And Caleb Williams, despite the game-losing interception against the Green Bay Packers, did show that they were able to stay in there right in that game up until the very end. Didn't really like the 4th-and-1 play call from Ben Johnson. I would have thought he would have stuck to his guns, kept running the football. They've been good at it all year with Monangai and DeAndre Swift, so why not run it there? Didn't end up happening. I wouldn't doubt if Cleveland finds a way to win. I mean, listen, Chicago is, again, we've always kind of felt Chicago's not the strongest team in the league. We still feel like there are some holes there. And I mean, listen, if they lose, their playoff chances drop down to 41%, which is scary. But I could be interested in seeing someone like Shedeur Sanders find a way to win against Chicago. I mean, it could be something fascinating to see. We'll see. I know one thing. Myles Garrett's probably going to be so excited to chase down Caleb Williams. I have a feeling that's like every week I say this is the week Myles breaks the sack record. I thought he'd get it against Tennessee just because rookie quarterback, bad offensive line, didn't quite happen. But I could see it against Chicago. Maybe he's waiting until he plays the Steelers or whatever to do it. Maybe he's holding back a little, like I got to do it against the other sack leader, which would honestly be a pretty good story. But look, I see this as, if you're Cleveland, you're using the rest of the season to evaluate Shedeur. That part's emphatically clear. You are using the rest of the season to evaluate Shedeur Sanders. You're going to see what he ends up looking like, if he's good. That's the reality. If he's good, if he's somebody that you want as your franchise guy moving forward. If he is, great. That's going to be your guy. If not, then you might draft someone. But I still think, and listen, I don't think they're going to draft a QB. They might. If they did, it'd be such a spiteful move. It'd be interesting to see. But I think you need to consider putting your chips in for Shedeur Sanders and giving him an opportunity. I think the issue is he's playing well right now, but I think once there's enough tape, I think it's going to be very difficult to see how Shedeur will have to develop his game past what it is, which is just what all young quarterbacks have to do. I don't think Cleveland will draft someone. I think they'll go out and then they'll try to get somebody to either be hopefully somebody on the outside, because I really don't trust Jerry Jeudy as a wide receiver one right now. I'd imagine they'd like to get a receiver. At least that's what I would do personally. As for the Chicago Bears, really could use this win. If losing this game would really hurt their playoff chances, dropping it down to 41%, what could potentially, I want to say, yeah. Big 20, nearly 25% playoff difference swing, whether or not they win. Big game there for Chicago as well. Moving into the late games of today, we actually have a large late window. There's 5 late games, I guess, because all the teams are playing now, so they got to fill out the slots as best they can. Panthers, Saints, huge game for Carolina. Absolutely. Of course, the Saints are still kind of figuring it out. Ellen Moore still figuring out how to coach this team to win. Get Tyler Shuck developed. But for Carolina, listen, and again, I think what's so interesting about the Panthers is they could win or lose any game. After beating the Rams, I'm like, all right, Carolina can win any game, they can lose any game. I could see, they could beat the Rams, and then it's like, oh, I see the Saints. Oh, yeah, they could lose that one. Because they did earlier this year. I think this is a very big game for Carolina Panthers. I think depending on what they look like coming into this game, it's going to tell me everything I need to know. Because if they don't win this game, and my guess is if they're not going to win the game, is that they won't look particularly prepared in doing so, it means I don't have faith in them. If they win this game, they would take first place in the NFC South. It would be a huge win for Dave Canales. It would be a huge win for Bryce Young. It would mean a lot for this Carolina Panthers organization to finally, after having the number 1 overall pick 2 years ago, looking like maybe you had missed out on Caleb Williams. Now you've got Bryce Young in the building. And listen, I'll tell you one thing. That would be a fun playoff matchup, actually. See, there'd be a lot of headlines there with the Bryce Young, which was essentially a Bryce Young for Caleb Williams trade. Like, that's what it was at that point. I'd be interested to see where that goes with Carolina, with New Orleans. If that playoff game were to occur, oh my god, a little fun, little matchup between the Panthers Bears in the playoffs, between that draft day trade, not draft day trade, but like they made the. I would probably say, look, I think Carolina does win this game. I do think they take first place in the NFC South, but I wouldn't doubt it if Tyler Shuck finds a way to sweep the Carolina Panthers and just. Because, I mean, listen, I think Kellen Moore was a good offensive coordinator in Philadelphia. I think they will figure it out in New Orleans. They just got to clear out a lot of the players that are, like, I would have moved off Kamara a while ago, trying to get someone different in the running back room. That's just me. We'll see where things go, but I like the Saints odds to pull an upset. But I do think Carolina does. Not enough to pick them. Lions, Rams. Rams, of course, big game for them. They need to keep holding on to the 1 seed. The Lions, massive game. They still sit outside the playoff picture. They need to find a way to get in there. I mean, they basically kind of want to knock off Chicago. That's probably their best bet based on what I've been seeing. But the Lions just do not have it particularly easy with their schedule. I mean, listen, Rams are on here. 3 of their 4 games are road games to mention. You have the Lions on, you have the Rams on here. You have to host Pittsburgh, who of course is still looking to make sure they wrap up their division. And then you got Vikings and Bears on the road. So it's far from an easy path for the Detroit Lions. I think at the very least they'll probably win one of those games to get a winning record. But in terms of getting into the postseason, will not be easy. That last game against the Bears, that could be for a playoff spot. That could 100% be for a playoff berth. We'll see what ends up happening. But I gotta be honest, it's gonna be a tight one. It will definitely be a close photo fight to the finish, I imagine. And then because the other reason is just because the Bears' schedule is very similar. I mean, not in terms of opponent, but certainly in terms of difficulty. Of course, Cleveland, but Green Bay is on here again, San Francisco's on here, and then of course you have Detroit at the end. So I think it's going to be a photo finish. We'll see who ends up getting there, whether it's the Bears or Lions, but I'm excited to see the final outcome. Should be good. And the fortunate thing for the Bears is, unlike the Lions have to play 3 road games. Bears get 3 home games. So it's going to be a good finish. I'm excited to see that. For this game between the Rams and the Lions, I do have the Rams. I just think that they've been so good. They've been so dominant all year. Listen, I mean, the last 2 matchups, the Lions have won, so I think the Rams are kind of due. I think the Rams are due to beat the Lions this time. And those 2 times they did have Ben Johnson. So this time they are without Ben Johnson. They'll be playing up against a much improved Rams defense. And, of course, the MVP, Matt Stafford, who could be in for another MVP-level performance. So I'm interested to see it. I think I like the Rams in this one. And then, of course, I think the big headline matchup has to be the Seahawks-Colts, just for the fact that Phillip Rivers is back. Phillip Rivers is back. Your childhood is not dead yet. Phillip Rivers is back to try to guide the Colts to the playoffs. On the other hand, I think this is not a good one for him to be coming back. And listen, I love Phillip Rivers, and I hope he can look incredible. But I just don't. It's such a difficult Seahawks defense to play. It just is. I mean, Seattle's been good all year. Sam Darnold has been a very nice surprise and following up last year with another very solid year. And I mean, listen, it's just the way of the cards, right? Like sometimes things just don't fall your way. This is a tough one to go up against. I mean, listen, Leonard Williams and DeMarcus Lawrence on a defensive line have always been very impressive. Nick Amanawari has been underrated, right? They got Devon Witherspoon back there. They have a great group of guys on the back end. And listen, offensively, stopping Jackson Smith and Jigba isn't easy either. So how the Colts are going to combat that, and how the Colts are going to combat that with, frankly, just not a very healthy group. I mean, we know Daniel Jones has now been placed on IR. They didn't have Anthony Richardson. They're starting Phillip Rivers this weekend. We know Sauce Gardner is out. We've seen Trevarius Ward go on IR with a concussion. We've seen DeForest Buckner go on IR. Like they're missing Braden. They've been missing Braden Smith. They're missing big pieces. I mean, do they still have guys like Jonathan Taylor, and can they still that's the thing. If they want to win in Seattle, they got to run the ball. They got to keep the Seahawks offense off the field. That's what they need to do. But if I'm the Colts, I mean, we're in it with Phillip Rivers, who just came out of retirement, who's only he's been back for a week. I mean, I want to see it. I really do. I think it'd be so entertaining, but I got to look at it and say, listen, that's hard. That's hard to ask of anybody, especially against a team that already has 10 wins on the year. I love you, Phillip. You've been great, and I think you'll play well. I just think it's too much. I think it's so much to ask to go in and that good. Rounding out the late games is packed. I think I have Seattle, and then the other late games, 49ers, Titans, nice win against Cleveland, nice second win. Probably not going to happen again. Just against San Francisco, against Kyle Shanahan and company, they're still fighting to make sure they get their playoff spot. They want to ensure that it's done and dusted. I think they're going to take this one at home. It's a lot to ask for the Titans to go all the way across the road and win, especially when they're not good. I got the Niners dusting off that one, and likely a huge day from Christian McCaffrey. San Francisco will be an interesting watch because I don't really feel confident in them either. I don't feel confident in a lot of these playoff teams, to be completely honest with you. It's just the fact that they haven't been fully healthy. They did a number on Shedeur a couple weeks ago, so my guess is they're going to do a number on Cam Ward as well. Just going to beat up on the rookie quarterback, and they're going to find a way to win. So I got 49ers on that one. But the other one, the Packers-Broncos game, is going to be an absolute... I'm interested to see it, because I want to see what Jordan Love and Bo Nix do against these defenses that played very well. I mean, Micah Parsons and Nick Bonito are going to be looking to chase down these young quarterbacks. I'm interested to see what Jordan Love is capable of in Toyotathon against a very good defense. And I'll be interested to see what Bo Nix is capable of moving forward with Denver, seeing what they can do offensively. I wouldn't doubt it if Green Bay finds a way to sneak a win on the road. I think it'd be such a statement win for the Green Bay Packers, especially considering the state of the NFC North. We're trying to figure out who the legitimate teams are. If they were to win this one, I think it would clearly put them right into that Super Bowl kind of contender. I still worry about and that's why I think this one's going to be very telling, because if they can sneak a win versus Denver, then I can feel a little bit more confident in Jordan Love, in his pass catchers and all of that. But I think it's very difficult to match up with guys like Patrick Surtain, Talanoa Hufanga, and just that whole back end of defense backs, not to mention the pass rushers up front. Nick Bonito and Allen, Cooper. It's tough. It's going to be tough for Green Bay. But I think if there's any teams that can pull off a win like that in Denver, they can. And, of course, Denver has had their fair share of issues staying dominant, really. Been playing a lot of close games, never really fully had a lead. So I think that's where a lot of that could potentially change. And then finally, listen, the Minnesota Vikings and the Dallas Cowboys, that one's going to be... I mean, listen, 9 has always been weird with me. Like, oh my gosh, he looks terrible in one game. Then they actually play well against a bad Commanders team. I don't think the Dallas Cowboys defense, it's definitely improved. It's still got its issues, as showcased on last Thursday night. But now they're going to get a chance on Sunday night to match up against the Vikings. I think this is where the Cowboys win and eliminate Vikings from playoff contention. Vikings may be eliminated just even before this game even starts. But I think the Dallas Cowboys, especially if the Raiders win against Philadelphia somehow, if the Eagles find a way to trip that up, I think Dallas is going to be... They would be really excited to find a way to get this win against the Minnesota Vikings. I think Dallas is just... Listen, George Pickens had a bad game against the Detroit Lions. I think he bounces back big in this one. I think CeeDee Lamb... if CeeDee's not playing, I think it will be interesting to see what the status is, but I do believe he is good to go after getting knocked out of last week's game with a concussion. I always look up schedule when I got the chart. Maybe it's because I typed. Probably wouldn't. Yep, CeeDee Lamb's good to go. Jake Ferguson is questionable, but will, I believe, likely play. No Tyler Guyton on tackle, but I don't think it's going to. I think they're just beat Minnesota just because, listen, Minnesota, you shut out the Commanders. Great, good on you. But I think if you're Dallas, and I think depending on how this game goes, if this game starts getting close to the end, I think the Vikings could sneak it out. But if Dallas goes up 14-zip, 17-zip, I just don't see the Vikings being able to contend and fight back, especially with the inability to get Justin Jefferson involved in the passing game. It doesn't scream confidence. That'd be the issue there. I think and then of course I'll be on tomorrow to talk Monday night pregame of the Steelers-Dolphins game. Outside of that, that's been the Week 15 Primetime pregame show. So I'm very glad that I was able to get it off. And wow, we are rounding out at just an hour. Look at that! All that yapping, I squeeze it all into 60 minutes. A lot of yapping from you, boy, today. A little quiet. Not a whole lot today, but I am glad for those who tuned in. I'm glad if you're watching this video right now, if you want to leave it a like. If you enjoyed while you listen to me just rant about random football stuff and you enjoy sports, it's the place to be. We're looking to grow. We're at 73 subs right now. If we can get, I'll say this, if we can get to 100, 100 is really hard now. Let's get to 80. Get to 80 before New Year's. I think that's possible. I think it's very possible to get to 80 before New Year's. I feel confident in that. I feel very confident in the fact that we get to 80 subs before. But that's where we're at right now. Of course, you guys enjoy Sunday football. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna go have some pigs and blankets or whatever. I'm gonna cook up some food, and I'm gonna have a good old day anytime because my team doesn't play. I don't have to stress as much today. My team doesn't play, and if Cincinnati wins, I'm even happier. I have to stress a little less. So that's all I have for you guys. Again, enjoy. Stay warm if it's cold near you. I know it's snowing near me. And if you're watching football, enjoy today. Enjoy today, live life, bada bing, bada boom, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys next time. I'll see you tomorrow. Next time, which will be tomorrow. And then, of course, I'll release the schedule for stream this week, probably tonight or right after the late games. I will see you guys next time.